You're standing at Target with a $200 cart of stuff you didn't plan to buy, and in that exact moment, you're making a decision that will determine whether you're still broke 5 years from now. You can feel it, right? That little voice saying, it's only $200, and meanwhile, your checking account has $1,847 in it, rent's due in 2 weeks, and you haven't looked at your credit card balance in 3 days because ignorance feels safer than knowing. You tell yourself you need this stuff. The storage bins are on sale. The throw pillows will finally make your living room look put together. That kitchen gadget will definitely make you cook more. And besides, you've been working hard. You deserve it. Here's what's really happening in that moment. You're failing a test you didn't even know you were taking. And this test determines everything about your financial future. Not your degree, not your salary, not whether you pick the right stocks. This one invisible threshold that you cross or don't cross every single day. Most financial advice tells you to budget better, invest consistently, cut out lattes. And look, that's not wrong, but it's treating the symptom, not the disease. Because the real question isn't whether you can afford the $200 card at Target. The real question is whether you have $5,000 sitting in your bank account right now. Not invested, not locked away, just sitting there, available. Boring as hell. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time obsessing over the invisible thresholds that separate people who build wealth from people who stay broke forever. And if you want to understand why some people seem to effortlessly build financial security while others make decent money but never get ahead, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up helping you see money differently. Because what I'm about to show you isn't complicated, but it will completely reframe how you think about every dollar you earn. Here's what changed for me. I used to think the path to wealth was this linear progression. Make more money, invest more money, retire rich. Logical, right? Except that's not how it actually works for most people. There's this chasm that opens up in your 20s and early 30s, and by the time you're 40, you're either on one side of it or the other. The people on one side are calm about money. Not rich necessarily, but calm. They don't panic when the car breaks down. They don't lose sleep over unexpected expenses. They make financial decisions from a position of power instead of desperation. The people on the other side? They're making $75,000 a year and still living paycheck to paycheck. They're borrowing from tomorrow to pay for today. They're stuck in what I call the permanent emergency, where everything is urgent and nothing is ever resolved. The difference? $5,000. Let me be clear. I'm not talking about $5,000 in retirement accounts. I'm not talking about $5,000 in equity in your house. I'm talking about $5,000 in boring, accessible cash sitting in your checking or savings account right now. Money that does absolutely nothing except exist. And I know what you're thinking. Nick, that's stupid. I should invest that money. Inflation is eating it alive. That's financially illiterate. That reaction? That's exactly why most people never build wealth. Here's the thing. The $5,000 rule isn't about optimizing returns. It's about changing the entire operating system of your financial life. It's about crossing a threshold that fundamentally alters your decision-making, your stress levels, and your ability to build wealth. Because once you have $5,000 in the bank, everything changes. And I mean everything. Let me paint you 2 scenarios. Same person, same salary, same life. The only difference is whether they have $5,000 or they don't. Scenario 1. No $5,000 buffer. Your car makes a weird noise. You know you should get it checked, but you also know that if it's serious, you don't have the money. So you wait. You hope. You tell yourself it's probably fine. 3 weeks later, that $200 repair has turned into $1,400 repair because you drove on a failing part that destroyed 3 other components. But you still don't have $1,400, so you put it on the credit card at 24% APR. Now you're paying $1,400 plus interest, which over the next year, assuming minimum payments, becomes about $1,650. That weird noise just cost you $1,450 more than it should have. But wait, it gets worse. Because you're stressed about the debt, you're distracted at work. You're not sleeping well. You snap at your partner. You start avoiding looking at your bank account, which means you miss the fact that you're about to overdraft, which means 3 transactions get hit with $35 fees each. That's another $105. And because you're in survival mode, when your friend invites you to dinner, you say yes even though you can't afford it because you desperately need to feel normal. And you end up spending $60 you didn't have, which goes on the credit card too. One car repair has spiraled into a $1,615 financial disaster plus immeasurable psychological damage. And this isn't theoretical. This is Tuesday for most Americans. Scenario 2. You have $5,000 in the bank. Your car makes a weird noise. You're annoyed, but you take it to the mechanic the next day. It's a $200 repair. You pay cash. Your buffer is now $4,800. Over the next month, you replenish it back to $5,000. Total cost, $200. Total psychological damage, 0. Total debt accumulated, 0. Same car, same noise, same person. The only difference is that $5,000 buffer. But look at the ripple effects. In scenario 1, you're now in debt, stressed, making worse decisions, and falling further behind. In scenario 2, you handled it and moved on with your life. This is what I mean by crossing a threshold. It's not about the math of investment returns. It's about fundamentally changing which game you're playing. Here's what's really happening psychologically. When you don't have a buffer, every financial decision is made from a position of desperation. You're not choosing the best option. You're choosing the option that doesn't immediately destroy you. You're in permanent triage mode. And in triage mode, you can't build wealth. You can only survive. I've seen this pattern hundreds of times. People making $50,000, $70,000, even $100,000 a year, still living in financial chaos because they never crossed this threshold. They got the raise, upgraded the apartment, bought the nicer car, and kept the same $847 in their checking account. They're making more money but playing the same desperate game. The $5,000 rule says before you do anything else, before you invest in index funds, before you max out your 401k, before you upgrade your life in any way, you get to $5,000 in accessible cash and you protect it like it's the most valuable thing you own because it is. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Nick, what about the opportunity cost? If I invest that $5,000 in the S&P 500 at 10% average annual returns, that's $500 per year I'm missing out on. Over 20 years, that's $28,637 in compound growth. You're right. That math is correct. But here's what that calculation misses. How many financial emergencies do you think you'll face over the next 20 years? Let's be conservative and say one per year that costs an average of $800. If you don't have a buffer, you're putting those on credit cards at 24% APR. The interest alone on that debt, assuming you're carrying an average balance of $3,000 over those 20 years, costs you $720 per year. That's $14,400 over 20 years, plus the principal, plus the overdraft fees, plus the late fees, plus the worse insurance rates you get when your credit score tanks, plus the mental health costs that lead to poor decisions. The person without the buffer isn't just missing out on investment gains. They're actively losing money every single month to the poverty premium. They're paying more for everything because they're always broke. But here's where things get really interesting, and this is the part that most financial advice completely misses. The $5,000 isn't just about preventing financial disasters. It's about enabling better decisions. When you have $5,000 in the bank, you can negotiate. The mechanic quotes you $1,400, you can get a second opinion instead of just accepting it because you're desperate. Your landlord raises the rent, you can actually consider moving instead of just absorbing it because you don't have first and last month's rent available. Your employer asks you to take on significantly more work without more pay. You can say no because you're not terrified of losing your job. That $5,000 gives you leverage. And leverage in financial negotiations is worth way more than 10% annual returns. Let me break down exactly what changes when you cross this threshold. First, your insurance gets cheaper. Seriously.
You're standing at Target with a $200 cart of stuff you didn't plan to buy. And in that exact moment, you're making a decision that will determine whether you're still broke 5 years from now. You can feel it, right? That little voice saying, "It's only $200." And meanwhile, your checking account has $1,847 in it, rent's due in 2 weeks, and you haven't looked at your credit card balance in 3 days because ignorance feels safer than knowing. You tell yourself you need this stuff. The storage bins are on sale. The throw pillows will finally make your living room look put together. That kitchen gadget will definitely make you cook more. And besides, you've been working hard. You deserve it. Here's what's really happening in that moment. You're failing a test you didn't even know you were taking. And this test determines everything about your financial future. Not your degree, not your salary, not whether you pick the right stocks. This one invisible threshold that you cross or don't cross every single day. Most financial advice tells you to budget better, invest consistently, cut out lattes. And look, that's not wrong. But it's treating the symptom, not the disease. Because the real question isn't whether you can afford the $200 card at Target. The real question is whether you have $5,000 sitting in your bank account right now, not invested, not locked away, just sitting there, available, boring as hell. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time obsessing over the invisible thresholds that separate people who build wealth from people who stay broke.
Second, you stop paying the desperate person tax. No more payday loans, no more overdraft fees, no more late fees. The average American pays $250 per year in overdraft fees alone. If you're using payday loans, you're paying way more. That stops immediately when you have $5,000. Third, you can buy in bulk when things are on sale. You see toilet paper 40% off? You buy the 6-month supply because you have the cash available. You're not buying 2 rolls at a time at the gas station for 300% markup because you can't afford the upfront cost of buying efficiently. Fourth, and this is huge, you can invest in yourself. That online course that would actually increase your skills? $200. That professional certification? $400. These investments in your earning power have returns that absolutely destroy stock market returns. But you can't make them when you're in survival mode. Look, I get it. Sitting on $5,000 in cash feels financially irresponsible when you're hearing about compound interest and time in the market. It feels like you're falling behind. Everyone on Twitter is talking about their investment portfolios, and you're over here with money just sitting there doing nothing. But here's what those people aren't telling you. Most of them either came from money and never experienced financial desperation, or they already crossed this threshold years ago and forgot what it was like before. They're playing a different game. They have the luxury of thinking about optimal investment strategies because they already have stability. You can't build wealth from a position of constant crisis. You just can't. The math doesn't work. The psychology doesn't work. Every emergency becomes a disaster. Every setback becomes a spiral. The $5,000 is the foundation, and you cannot build a house without a foundation, no matter how fancy your architectural plans are. Now, here's the part that's going to surprise you. Getting to $5,000 isn't actually about making more money. I mean, obviously, more money helps, but I've seen people making $45,000 build this buffer, and I've seen people making $120,000 fail to build it. The difference isn't income. The difference is understanding the psychology of how you got here in the first place. Most people think they don't have $5,000 saved because they don't make enough money. And sure, if you're making $25,000 a year, it's genuinely hard. But most people reading this are making enough. The problem is lifestyle creep, combined with what I call invisible financial bleeding. You're losing money in 30 different directions, none of which feels significant in the moment, but together, they're preventing you from ever crossing this threshold. Let me show you where the money is actually going. And I'm not talking about obvious stuff like rent and groceries. I'm talking about the invisible drains that feel like nothing but add up to everything. Subscriptions you forgot about. The average person has 4 to 6 subscriptions they don't regularly use. At $15 each, that's $60 to $90 per month, or $720 to $1,080 per year. That's literally 20% of your $5,000 buffer just being automatically drained every year. The convenience tax. You're ordering food delivery 2 to 3 times per week because you're too tired to cook. Each order is $25 to $35 after fees and tip. That's $75 to $105 per week, or $3,900 to $5,460 per year. I'm not saying never order delivery. I'm saying you're spending more than your entire emergency buffer on convenience food without even realizing it. The might need it purchases. You bought a stand mixer because you might start baking, an exercise bike because you might start working out, an expensive winter coat because it was on sale even though your current coat is fine. These might-need-it purchases average $2,000 to $3,000 per year for most people. You're literally spending your emergency fund on things you might hypothetically use in a future that never comes. Here's what's really happening. You've been conditioned to think that money is for spending, that if money is in your account, it should be converted into things. The entire economy is designed to make you feel like saving is missing out, like that money sitting there is wasted potential. But that's backwards. That $5,000 sitting there doing nothing is actually doing everything. It's giving you options. It's giving you time. It's giving you the ability to make rational decisions instead of desperate ones. So how do you actually get there? Because understanding why you need it and actually building it are two different things. First, you have to stop thinking about this as traditional saving. Saving feels optional. Saving feels like if there's money left over. Nobody ever has money left over. Instead, you need to think about this as paying your freedom bill. Every month, you owe yourself a payment toward crossing this threshold. That payment comes first, not last. The amount doesn't matter as much as the consistency. If you can do $500 per month, you're there in 10 months. If you can only do $200 per month, you're there in 25 months. The timeline is less important than the commitment. Because here's the thing. Most people try to save inconsistently. They save $800 one month, then $0 for 3 months, then $200, then they drain it for something that wasn't really an emergency. They never cross the threshold. They just bounce around below it forever. You need to set up automatic transfers the day after your paycheck hits. Not when you remember, not when you feel like it, automatic. Treat it like a bill you can't skip. Second, you have to protect it viciously. This is not your vacation fund. This is not your I really want that thing fund. This is your the transmission died fund. This is your I got fired and need time to find a new job fund. This is your I can say no to exploitative situations fund. The psychology here is critical. If you let yourself dip into this fund for non-emergencies, you're teaching yourself that it's optional, that it's available. You're training yourself back into the old pattern. The $5,000 has to be mentally categorized as untouchable except for genuine emergencies. And no, wanting the new iPhone is not an emergency. Your friend's destination wedding is not an emergency. A sale on furniture is not an emergency. You know what an emergency is. Third, you have to cut the invisible bleeding while you're building the buffer. This is temporary. You're not going to live like this forever. But for the 10 to 25 months it takes you to get to $5,000, you need to be ruthless. Cancel every subscription you don't use multiple times per week, not might use. Use. If you haven't opened the app in a week, it's gone. Stop ordering delivery. I don't care how tired you are. Meal prep on Sunday or eat simple foods. A rotisserie chicken and frozen vegetables cost $10 and takes 5 minutes. That saves you $65 per week, which is $3,380 per year. You just found most of your buffer. Implement a 7-day rule for any non-essential purchase over $50. You want it? Great. Wait 7 days. If you still want it after 7 days, go back and buy it. You'll find that 70% of the time, you don't go back. That's thousands of dollars staying in your account instead of converting into regret. Here's where people usually push back. But Nick, you're telling me to live like I'm poor even though I make decent money.
What's the point of making money if I can't enjoy it? Listen, I get it. You've been working hard. You deserve nice things. You deserve to enjoy your life. I'm not arguing with any of that. But here's the question. Are you actually enjoying your life right now? Because from where I'm sitting, people without financial buffers aren't enjoying anything. They're stressed constantly. They're one bad month away from catastrophe. They're making every decision from a place of fear. The temporary sacrifice of building the buffer isn't about punishing yourself. It's about buying your way out of financial prison. It's about reaching the point where you can actually enjoy money because it's not coming from a place of desperation. Think about it this way. Would you rather spend $200 on a nice dinner when you have $5,000 in the bank, or spend $200 on a nice dinner when you have $847 in the bank and rent is due in 2 weeks? Same dinner, same $200, completely different experience. One is enjoyment, one is anxiety with food. The $5,000 doesn't stop you from enjoying your money. It allows you to actually enjoy your money for the first time. Now, let's talk about what happens after you cross the threshold, because this is where things get really interesting, and it's why the $5,000 rule is just the beginning, not the end. Once you have $5,000, something psychological happens. You've proven to yourself that you can accumulate money, that you're not doomed to live paycheck to paycheck forever, that you have agency. That shift in identity is enormous. You're not someone who's trying to save money anymore. You're someone who has savings. That sounds like semantics, but it changes everything about how you operate. With $5,000 in the bank, getting to $10,000 feels possible instead of absurd. And once you're at $10,000, you're in a completely different financial reality. You can handle a job loss for a few months. You can make a career change. You can move cities if you need to. You have options that people without buffers simply cannot access. But here's what most people do wrong. They get to $5,000 and immediately start feeling rich.